I feel like Robert Saleh this morning, all right, for the first time in about 3 years, is beginning to understand that it's okay to be himself. And, like, there's no punchline there. That's not a knock. I listened to the interview this morning with Rob and obviously Boomer and Gio earlier on the Fan. And I heard somebody for the first time since he became the coach of the Jets who was not trying to appease people. And the genesis of that, right? And sometimes personal change comes, when it's least expected. Sometimes it happens right away. Sometimes it's happened, 3-4 years down the road. You never know, all right? The human mind is unpredictable. And I don't know if this is fully true. I'm thinking that it could be the start of something true, because what he said, he talked about, it was a very raw assessment of what he's done wrong, an ownership of some mistakes he's made. He was talking about last year how when the locker room was really fractured, the Zach stuff and covering up for Zach and all that stuff, which drove us nuts because it didn't seem real.
Right.
All right. He was not painting a realistic picture of what was wrong with that team. And we all knew it because we're not dumb. And he basically told us this morning, he said, because it was so fractured and so vulnerable with Rodgers going down, et cetera, that I really tried to protect it and insulate it and isolate it. And in doing so, I may have gone too far. To me, it was a pretty candid admission and good self-awareness that, at least for me, on the lowest level, because you and I both do not believe in him and have not, on the lowest level, gives me hope that Robert Saleh can change in year 4.
I loved listening to Saleh, and I've never felt like Saleh was a bad guy. Matter of fact, it was always the opposite. Saleh seemed like a good dude. You want to hang out. Bingo.
Too good.
Too nice. You're a head coach in the NFL. There's got to be some nastiness there. And it felt like he was trying to appease, protect. He said, to your point, the harder he tried, the worse it got. So I do think that Robert Saleh, and he also admitted to being, to learning here as he's going into year 4 as a head coach. I do think that Robert Saleh has learned from his mistakes. However, I still don't believe, this is why I wouldn't have hired a head coach. It's not Saleh's fault. It's the Jets' fault for hiring a guy as a rookie head coach. They're going to learn on the job. And learning on the job is very difficult, especially in New York City, and especially with that franchise that is starved for a winner. There are no, there is no forgiveness. There is no margin for error. The fans want and they deserve instant success. This better be the guy. This got to be the guy. He's our coach. He can kick your ass. All that stuff with Saleh and the excitement. And then it was a total flop. And it has been that way for different reasons for 3 years. I want to root for Robert Saleh, and I do agree with you. Now, I'm somebody that said he's the worst head coach in the league, and there are reasons for that.
I didn't necessarily disagree.
Well, he's still going to have to prove himself to get out of that.
That's right.
But I did hear a different Robert Saleh.
Yes.
Does that mean that that's going to translate to success? I don't know. Does that mean that guys are going to be held accountable when they do stupid things on the football field? Does that mean the team's going to be more disciplined and have less penalties? Does that mean it's going to have, as you talked about, being more influential or having more of a grasp on the offense? Does that mean that that's going to be the case? I still don't believe it. I'm rooting for it because I do want to see Saleh have success. I think he's a really nice guy and clearly a passionate football coach and a guy to some extent that's obviously had some success to get him to the point where he's at being a head coach in this league. I just don't believe, BT, that Robert Saleh is a great head coach.
I'm not saying that he is. What I'm saying is that at least there's an awakening from within, maybe. I mean, listen, to me, now, let's be very clear about this. Sitting there on a nice, lazy, mid-August morning with Boomer and Gio, and the interview was good, so this isn't a knock, in a fairly benign, setting. There's no pressure. You haven't lost a game yet. You didn't commit 12 penalties. You didn't put 3 balls on the turf. Nobody got hurt yet, thank God, knocking on wood. It's easy to sit there and maybe project something a little differently. What would happen if, say, the Jets start, the schedule's easy past San Francisco. I don't envision this at all. But let's just say the Jets were 2-3 and the defense is getting sliced up. Well, then what Robert Saleh shows up at the podium and addresses, in speaking to us as members of the media, and which is a direct liaison to the fan base, does he protect them? Does he, does he kiss their ass, or does he light them up a little bit, which is what we expect? And that will be the ultimate revelation as to whether or not Robert Saleh has learned from previous mistakes. I do believe this, Sal. If you are a smart person and smart people are, first of all, step back. First of all, smart people know when it's time to look within. Right. Dig down deep, self-assess. I do believe he's smart. I do believe he's self-assessed.
He said as much, basically.
For sure.
Taking some accountability, learning from his mistakes. Those are good things to be learning.
Outstanding things. Not everybody wants to do that. And let's see if Dable does that as well with some of the temperamental things. I think he's smart as well. I think he probably will. But the self-assessment comes first. Then, once you self-assess and you identify 2 or 3 things you need to work on, well, then where does the personal adaptability come into play? Are you capable of changing? One thing to recognize may be an issue that you need to change, but the harder thing to do is actually changing it in terms of implementing different things in your life. Listen, I don't want to go nuts. I'm not sitting here saying, even though I'm hoping for it, Jets 14-3, Super Bowl, this Coach of the Year. I'm not saying that at all. And Robert Saleh still worries me on game day. But the man that I heard this morning on our station with Boomer and Gio sounds like he knows he has to change, and he's in the process of doing it, and I'll take that as a starting point.
Well, I think it's a great sign, and you'd rather that than the opposite, not learning, not taking accountability, thinking that everything was fine. And look, he's handled a lot of adversity. You find out what people are made of when they go through adversity and come out the other side successful, so he's going to have an opportunity here. But that, to me, means we're just further evaluating Robert Saleh. And maybe the mistake would have been to fire Saleh, although we talked about it, in regards to getting a more proven, established head coach. It wasn't just get rid of Saleh and hire the next unknown. In this particular case, with the setup here with the Jets, with Rodgers, 40-year-old quarterback, they're ready to win now. The idea would have been to move on from another year of evaluating a young head coach who's learning and bringing in an established, no doubt about it, head coach. But they didn't do that. And now Saleh's learning from his mistakes. Year 4, it's going to be a make or break year if he does not have success. And he knows it. He's going to be looking for a job. He'll be a defensive coordinator somewhere else, probably next season. But I just don't believe. I like Robert Saleh. I loved what I heard this morning. I want to see him have that success and prove me and all the doubters wrong, that he can lead this team to the postseason and beyond and be the head coach of this franchise for the next 15 years. I just don't believe on game day he's going to be the guy to get this team over the hump. I need to see it, BT. Game day, holding guys accountable, all those things. I think ultimately Robert Saleh is too nice to be a successful head coach.
BT and Sal here on The Fan. Good morning, everybody. 10-10, of course, is it's just out of the chute here on the show. That was a really good spot, Boomer and Jerry. I would say that you guys should go listen to it. We're going to play the snippet coming up in a bit. 888-808-1019, BT and Sal, as I said. Now, I also think that there are certain people who just try to get over on others, and they say things to placate us. I don't think that applies here.
He was real.
He was real. He was genuine. He was sincere.
He said, as a matter of fact, a negative was that he's too transparent, which I agree.
Yeah, the Beningo stuff. I mean, put the phones down. Don't worry about being nice to everybody. Be the ass-kicking head coach that we thought you were. The thing that has driven me nuts most about Robert Saleh, because let's be honest about stuff, like the offense has been so substandard, it's even hard to grade him on game day because too often in the fourth quarter, even with a really good defense, the Jets are multiple scores down, and it's like you don't even really know how his heartbeat's going to react in a 3-point game with 2.5 minutes to go. And do I call timeout? Do I punt? Do I go for it down a distance? Nobody knows. What we knew or what we saw too often was a head coach who didn't omit control. And if you're not an X's and O's, like if you're not a savant like McVay on offense or Sean Payton, then you and I do think he's to an extent like that with defense, then you've got to bring the other aspect to the table, which is leadership. And too often I feel as if he abandoned his post in trying to act, ironically, in trying to be a leader and protect his team. He didn't do his job even remotely well enough by being the leader. So I think he's learned that. I hope he's learned that. And if he has not, then there's no chance. If he has, there's a chance.
I don't know if that's something that you can learn. I do think that he is learning. I do think that he has learned from certain mistakes. I don't know if you can learn to be in full command. And we talked about this exact thing. It just proves us right last year that he didn't have full control of the team. When things were going off the rails, he was being too nice and trying too hard and being too transparent. All those things are not what you want to see from a head coach. I want more of I hate to say jerk because I don't think Dable's a jerk, but a head coach that's going to be rough around the edges, a no-nonsense guy, a guy who's in command. Now, there still needs to be things proven from Dable's point of view, but that, to me, that's what I value as a head coach in the NFL. A guy who is in total command. And if you're not going to be an X's and O's guru, like you said, then you better be in total command. Meaning that even if your star quarterback goes down, you figure out a way to win some football games and you look competent. And there's got to be some consistency along the way. And with the Jets, it's always one thing after another, off the rails. Mike White, Zach Wilson, stupid penalties, the inept offense, just the texting with Benigno. It just never ends. That's got to stop. He did sound like he learned. We're going to see this season for Robert Saleh and a make-or-break year.
Where do you think the Jet fan is right now? I mean, everything that we've said, I think our instincts on and our opinions on what we see and what we feel about Saleh, I think they're largely echoed throughout the Jets fan base, the Jets community. I don't think that there's an overwhelming percentage of Jet fans who think that Robert Saleh is some amazing coach. I think that we're all probably on the same page with that.
Right.
Maybe a bit more of a detriment than a game day asset.
Right.
But do you think Jet fans are even open-minded enough to maybe be swayed by I do. Well, partly out of desperation, sure.
Well, especially going into a season, what are you supposed to say? No, I don't believe in the head coach. It's over. I'm not going to watch.
Well, that's what we've been saying.
No,
well, you're still going to watch.
It's different for us. We have to give how we feel. The fans do not have to do that. They could think that and say it, but I would never let that get in the way of enjoying a season here. Even with Robert Saleh, and my biggest criticism of him is that I think he could be a detriment as far as holding them back from achieving the ultimate goal and winning a Super Bowl. But Robert Saleh...
Because of his coaching or his personality, or both?
I think probably both. I think they go hand in hand. I think he's too nice, too transparent. Now, maybe he learned from that. I don't want the X's and O's from him.
Yep.
I want somebody who's in total control and command. But it doesn't mean that they can't go to the playoffs. I mean, they have a talented roster. We've seen coaches that have no clue some of them won Super Bowls. Think about it. So guys that win Super Bowls get fired, never get hired again. So that has happened before. So it doesn't. If you're a fan, I don't think you could let the side of your brain that says, I don't believe in this guy as a head coach. He's got to prove it to me. I don't think you can let that impact your excitement for the season. So I think fans are excited. Do I think they believe that Robert Saleh is a great head coach? No, I don't.
No, but I'm saying, do you think that they think that he can transform into a solid one?
I think that. Oh, look, even I believe that Saleh could be competent enough for this team to have some success.
Yeah, okay.
Ultimately, I just don't believe in him being a great head coach. I want to see him prove me wrong.
Yeah.
And maybe in year 4, this is going to be a make-or-break year. Maybe he can do that. I need to see it because it sounds great, but also his introductory press conference sounded great. And
sounded amazing.
Okay, so then how'd the 3 years after that go?
Yep.
So while his interview with Boomer and Gio, he sounded great and transparent and taking accountability. And
he sounded different, though.
He did.
He sounded different.
Okay, but now we need to see it.
Yeah, I got you.
Now, sounding different to us is different. Is he going to hold his players accountable? Like when Tack McKinley or whoever, takes a stupid penalty. Is he going to bench him? Is he going to get in his face and say get in the sideline?
We'll know right away.
Okay.
Game 1, Niners. What do you do at the podium? Game 2, Tennessee. What do you do at the podium? We'll know.
Okay.
We'll know fast. Pats, week 3, home opener. We'll know.
I don't think I think you could learn and change and adapt, sure. But I think Saleh, deep down, he loves his players, which is great.
Mm-hmm.
But I also think that there's a time to get on him and have a line of separation between head coach, be-all, end-all authority, full authority, and be one of the guys. And I think Saleh is too in as one of the guys.
He trips over that line too often.
Yeah.
888-808-1019, BT and Sal. What do you think? Did you hear the spot? Did you hear a different coach, a coach who's ready to correct some obvious weaknesses? And let's face it, he certainly has to. We're inside of our Town Fair Tire studio. Our friends at Town Fair remind you that you always get the guaranteed lowest price on name brand tires from Connecticut to Maine. Nobody beats Town Fair Tire. Nobody. Think about this, guys. We one thing that Sal and I like to do often, because, we grew up listening to the station. We certainly, have great respect and reverence for what came before us, especially the main staples, the legends. Like, imagine back in the day, right? After a crazy Yankee loss or a Met loss or a Knick, playoff, like the fight with the Heat in 97.
Yeah.
Imagine flipping on the fan and expecting, crazy, wacky, zany Mad Dog. And instead it's sedate, sterile, stoic Chris. Like, 101 here on the fan.
Yeah, right.
Mikey,
what's going on
Chris,
here?
how are you guys?
Yeah.
You'd be like, wow, that is a complete reversal of script. And I say that because that, to me, is, aside from the X's and O's and some little things we could certainly quibble about, but to me, Robert Saleh, the guy that I thought was coming into the building, I call him the Bald Bull from the old Mike Tyson Punch-Out game.
I remember.
This jacked, tanned, physical freak who was like, with the Niners, I'm watching the red zone, and I'm seeing jump like he looks like like Goldberg, and I'm like, where is that guy? What happened to that person? I don't think that, I'm not saying that today's interview is step one of him transforming into that, but it's sure as hell a step in the right direction. Because he almost forgot what got him here.
I know, but it's easy to have that happen when you don't have success. You could have all the confidence in the world. If you're not having success and he has been beaten down for 3 years, you're going to lose yourself along the way. So I think ultimately he's got to have success with his team, and then maybe we start to see that go the right direction for him.
Well, that's an interesting point. Let's get to Bobby and Belmore. First up, BT and Sal on the fan. Bobby, what's cooking, buddy? How are you?
Hi, guys. Listen, you're not going to change your spots after the second year. After the first year, you learn on the job. He doesn't make any adjustments. He just stands there like a robot. I mean, look at the Miami game last year, okay? Hill goes out of the game, Waddle is in, and you go put Sauce on him, and they got blown out. He was killing them. You should have got fired after that game alone. I mean, this guy doesn't make any adjustments. He just stands there. He doesn't talk. And he's not – you need an offensive coordinator with a young quarterback. Now you have Rodgers, a different story. But I understand that. But, I mean, this whole team is dysfunctional. I mean, this Reddick thing doesn't surprise me at all.
He's also – it's an interesting point, Bobby, and thank you for the call. We'll get to the Reddick stuff in a little bit and Joe Douglas. But it's an interesting point where we've talked about endlessly that Zach Wilson was not set up for success. Well, neither was Robert Saleh, to be fair. He was put in a spot where this is a tough town, period. And it's an even tougher town for a rookie head coach, not to mention what he was given with a rookie quarterback who was clearly overmatched and didn't belong. Unfortunately, the passing of Greg Knapp did not help. I mean, that really did hurt the Jets. And you heard Saleh reference that in that interview, but it did hurt the Jets and Zach Wilson. But then, not only that, then you have Aaron Rodgers coming in. And great, okay, Aaron Rodgers, but Rodgers brings in his offensive coordinator, and Saleh loses. I don't care what anybody says. He loses some of that control or power that he should have when they bring in Rodgers and when they bring in Nathaniel Hackett. End of story. Then Rodgers goes down. So there are things that you could look at Saleh and say, has it really been fair to evaluate him? Has he been set up for success? No, he hasn't, but there are certain things that he could have been better at along the way as well.
And that's the point, and that's a really good one. Do I think if Robert Saleh at bare minimum had a functional offensive line along the way, he'd probably have 6 or 7 more wins over the 3 years? I do. I absolutely do. Because it sabotaged their ability to do anything. And when it's 3 and out, your defense is shot. I mean, and then just residually, it just impacts negatively downstream, and you just win 5 or 6 games a year, 7 last year. So I'm going to give him that. The things that he can control, which are pretty easy, what you project publicly, that's where he stumbles. Yeah. Not that it doesn't sound like there's some people who are in front of a mic, you're like, God, like Adam Gase, no disrespect.
He had no shot.
He just sounded lost and beyond hope. From his opening press conference, like just awkward and lost and odd and disjointed, even though he's actually brilliant from an offensive point of view. He didn't project anything coherently. I don't know how else to say it. That's not Robert Saleh's problem. Robert Saleh's problem has been you don't know who's in charge. Is it too late to change that? 888-808-1019. BT and Sal